Maya Torres crawled through the narrow ventilation shaft, her tablet screen casting blue light on the metal walls around her. The air recycling unit in Section 12 had been making strange clicking sounds for 3 days. Nobody else wanted to squeeze through the tight spaces to reach it, so the job fell to her like always. She wiggled forward another few feet and checked her readings again. The temperature gauge showed everything normal, but the sound analysis picked up a rhythm that did not belong. Maya had fixed thousands of these units across dozens of stations. She knew every noise they should make and every noise they should not. The shaft ended at a maintenance panel that should have opened into a storage room. Maya pushed it aside and dropped down, expecting to see boxes and spare parts. Instead, she found herself standing in the middle of what looked like a war zone. Tall beings in armor crashed into each other with weapons that hummed and sparked. The floor beneath her feet vibrated with each impact. Strange creatures she had never seen before moved with deadly grace, their movements creating patterns that her mind automatically tried to understand like any other mechanical system. Maya pulled up her work order on the tablet and frowned. According to the station map, this should be storage room 122C. She looked up at the ceiling where she had just emerged, then back at her tablet. The coordinates matched perfectly. A massive creature with gray skin and yellow eyes noticed her, standing there. It had scales along its arms and a face that looked like someone had mixed a lizard with a very angry human. The thing wore some kind of instructor uniform and carried a weapon that glowed with energy. "What is a maintenance worker doing in my training hall?" the creature asked in a voice that sounded like grinding stone. Maya held up her tablet. "The air recycler is broken. I need to fix it before the whole section overheats." Several other beings stopped their fighting to stare at her. She counted at least 6 different species, all carrying weapons that could probably cut through steel. Maya had seen plenty of alien species in her work, but these looked like they were built specifically for combat. "This is a restricted area," the gray creature said. "Only certified combat personnel are allowed here." Maya walked past him toward the far wall where her scanner indicated the recycling unit should be. "Look, I do not care what kind of training you do here. I just need to fix the machine before it breaks down completely. That will take maybe 20 minutes. 2 security guards stepped into her path. They wore the blue uniforms of station security and looked nervous about being in the same room as the armed beings. One of them, a human with sergeant stripes, held up his hand. "Miss, you need to come with us. This area is off limits to civilian personnel." Maya sighed and stepped to the left to go around them. The sergeant moved to block her again. Without thinking about it, Maya shifted her weight and slipped past him like water flowing around a rock. The second guard tried to grab her arm, but somehow his hand closed on empty air while Maya continued toward the wall panel. She had done the same movement thousands of times in narrow maintenance tunnels and tight spaces. When you spent your life crawling through areas barely big enough for a human body, you learned to move efficiently. Maya never thought about it any more than she thought about breathing. The gray creature, who the others called Drillmaster Crone, watched her with growing interest. His yellow eyes followed her movements as she knelt beside the wall panel and started removing screws with practiced speed. "Interesting," Crone said quietly. Maya found the recycling unit exactly where her scanner said it would be. The problem was obvious once she opened the housing. 3 of the filter alignment pins had worked loose, causing the entire mechanism to vibrate against its mounting. She pulled out her toolkit and went to work. "I said you need to leave," the sergeant said, walking over to where Maya knelt with her tools spread around her. "And I said I need to fix this first," Maya replied without looking up from her work. "Unless you want half the station to lose air circulation tonight." The sergeant reached down to grab her shoulder. Maya automatically ducked under his hand and scooted 2 feet to the left, still focused on realigning the filter pins. She had learned long ago that the best way to deal with interruptions was to ignore them and finish the job. The second guard came around from the other side. Maya rolled backward on her knees and continued working, staying just out of reach. To everyone watching, it looked like she was playing some kind of game with the security officers. In reality, Maya simply moved to wherever she had the best access to the equipment. "Enough," Crone said in his grinding voice. The guard stepped back immediately, The Drillmaster walked over to stand directly in front of Maya, his weapon held loosely in one massive hand. "You will demonstrate your evasion techniques." Maya looked up from her work for the first time since entering the room. "My what?" "Your combat movement. Show me how you were trained." "I was not trained for anything except fixing machines. I just need to finish this job." Maya turned back to the recycling unit. "Hand me that calibration tool from my kit." Instead of handing her the tool, Crone raised his weapon. The blade hummed with energy, casting purple light across Maya's work area. "Block this strike." Maya yawned. She had been up since 5 in the morning dealing with broken equipment all over the station. Her back ached from crawling through maintenance shafts, and she still had 4 more repair calls to finish before her shift ended. Without taking her eyes off the filter alignment, Maya reached up with her left hand and caught the blade in her palm just as Crone brought it down toward her head. The training hall went completely silent. Maya held the energy weapon like it was a screwdriver someone had handed her. The blade continued to hum against her skin, but she showed no reaction to the heat or energy that should have burned through flesh and bone. "Thanks," she said, still looking at the recycling unit. "Can you hold this for a second while I get the mounting bracket back in place?" She handed the weapon back to Crone and returned to her work. The Drillmaster stood frozen, staring at his blade and then at Maya's unmarked palm. Every being in the training hall watched as Maya finished repairing the recycling unit, packed up her tools, and stood up with a satisfied nod. The strange clicking sound had stopped and her tablet showed all systems operating normally. There, that should keep the air flowing properly. Maya looked around at the silent group of warriors and security guards. "Is there a problem?" Crone found his voice first. "What are you?" The argument in Director Neth's office had been going on for 2 hours. Maya sat in a chair that was too big for her, surrounded by beings who kept talking about her like she was not there. Her tablet showed 17 new repair requests that had come in while she wasted time in meetings. Director Neth belonged to a species called the Vorthan. Her body looked like it was made of living crystal that shifted from blue to purple depending on how the light hit it. She stood behind a desk that could have served as a landing pad for small ships, studying security footage on multiple screens. "Play it again," Neth said in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. The largest screen showed Maya catching Crone's energy blade for the 15th time. Each replay made the other beings in the room shift uncomfortably. Drillmaster Crone stood, at attention beside the desk, his scaled face showing confusion and something that might have been excitement. "I still do not understand what the big deal is," Maya said. "The blade was not even sharp, it was just warm." Dr. Lin, the Academy's human researcher, leaned forward in her chair. She was the only other human Maya had seen since arriving at the A station, and she wore the white coat of someone who spent more time with computers than people. "Maya, that weapon generates temperatures of over 2,000 degrees. It should have cut through your hand and half your arm before you even realized it was there." Maya shrugged. Maybe it was not turned on all the way. Crone made a growling sound deep in his throat. "The weapon was at full power. I have used it to cut through battle armor." "Then maybe your weapon is broken. I can take a look at it after I finish my other repairs." The crystal being behind the desk made a sound like breaking glass, which Maya was learning meant she was either laughing or very angry. "Ms. Torres, you demonstrate capabilities far beyond those of trained warriors. The Academy cannot simply let you return to maintenance duties." "Why not? I like fixing things. I am good at fixing things. I am not good at whatever you people do here." Director Neth touched something on her desk, and the screens changed to show different views of the training hall. Maya saw herself moving around the security guards, but from these angles it looked completely different. Her movements flowed like water around obstacles, never wasted, never hurried, always perfectly balanced. You evaded 2 trained security officers without conscious effort. You caught a weapon moving at combat speed without looking at it. Your reflexes and spatial awareness are beyond anything we have seen from an untrained individual. Maya looked at the screens and frowned. "I just moved out of the way. If you spend your whole life crawling through maintenance shafts, you learn not to bump into things." Dr. Lin pulled out her own tablet and showed Maya a series of charts and numbers. I have been reviewing your employment records. You have worked on 47 different stations and ships over the past 8 years. Your efficiency ratings are off the charts. You complete repairs in half the time of other technicians, and your work never needs to be redone. So you are not just good at your job. You are impossibly good at your job. The kind of spatial reasoning and motor control you demonstrate should not exist in humans. Maya stood up from her chair. Look, this is all very interesting, but I have a hydroponic system that needs new filters and a gravity generator that makes weird noises when it cycles. Can I go back to work now? No, Director Neth said firmly. You will train here. I do not want to train here. I want to fix machines. Then you will remain in detention until you agree to training. Maya stared at the crystal being. You are going to arrest me for being good at my job? We are going to detain you for unauthorized demonstration of combat capabilities in a restricted area. The argument might have continued for another 2 hours, but it was interrupted by a loud crash from somewhere in the station. The lights flickered, and Maya's tablet immediately lit up with emergency alerts. Primary power coupling in Section 8, Maya said, reading her screen. Backup systems are overloading. You have maybe 10 minutes before you lose life support to half the station. Director Neth touched her desk controls. Engineering teams to Section 8 immediately. Maya was already walking toward the door. Your engineering teams will take 30 minutes to get there and another hour to figure out what is wrong. I can fix it in 15 minutes if you let me go now. You will remain here until... The lights went out completely, leaving only the emergency strips glowing red along the walls. Maya's tablet switched to battery power and showed critical system failures spreading across multiple sections. 5 minutes now, Maya said calmly. After that, you will need to evacuate anyone who breathes oxygen. Dr. Lin stood up quickly. Director, perhaps we should... Fine. Drillmaster Krone will accompany you to ensure you return here immediately after. The repairs are complete. Maya was already through the door and jogging down the corridor, her tablet lighting the way. Krone followed behind her, his heavy boots echoing off the walls. Emergency announcements blared from speakers calling for evacuation of affected sections. How do you know exactly what is wrong? Krone asked as they reached a maintenance shaft. Maya pulled open the access panel and crawled inside. The power signature is wrong. Primary coupling failure always looks like this on the sensors. Her voice echoed from inside the shaft. Are you coming or not? Krone looked at the narrow opening. His broad shoulders would never fit through the space. I will wait here. Maya's voice came back faint and distorted. Suit yourself. Try not to let anyone else wander into restricted areas while I fix this. It took her exactly 12 minutes to replace the burned coupling and reroute power around the damaged sections. The lights came back on, and life support resumed normal operation. When Maya emerged from the maintenance shaft, she found Krone standing exactly where she had left him. How? He asked simply. Maya wiped grease from her hands with a rag. The coupling was rated for standard load, but someone had been running the system 15% over capacity for months. Metal fatigue caused it to crack, which created an arc that burned out the whole assembly. I meant, how did you move through that space so quickly? I have seen trained soldiers who could not navigate those passages half as fast. Maya looked at the access panel she had just emerged from. The opening was barely wide enough for a human body, with multiple pipes and cables creating a maze inside. I have been crawling through spaces like that since I was 12 years old. You learn to see the path and follow it without thinking about it. They walked back toward the director's office in silence. Maya checked her tablet and saw that her repair list had grown to 23 items while she fixed the power coupling. The director will not let you leave, Krone said finally. The director needs to understand that I have a job to do. Your job now is training. Maya stopped walking and looked up at the tall reptilian being. I do not want to hurt people. I want to fix things that are broken. Krone studied her with his yellow eyes. What if I told you that some things that are broken require more than tools to fix? 3 weeks of training had taught Maya 2 things. First, she was apparently much stronger and faster than normal humans. Second, everyone at the academy took fighting way too seriously. She sat in the corner of the training hall, reading maintenance manuals on her tablet while other students practiced with weapons that could level buildings. Her own training sessions had become something of a spectacle. Word had spread throughout the station about the maintenance worker who could catch energy blades and move like smoke through security cordons. "Torres, you are up," Drillmaster Crone called from across the hall. Maya looked up from an article about plasma conduit efficiency ratings. "Can I finish this section first? I am learning about a new technique for preventing power coupling failures." "Now, Torres." Maya sighed and put her tablet aside. Her opponent stood in the center of the sparring circle, a being she had not seen before. It was roughly humanoid but covered in metal plating that looked like it had been surgically attached to its body. Red lights glowed where its eyes should be, and when it moved, Maya could hear servos whirring inside its limbs. Dr. Lin spoke from her observation station. "Maya, meet Unit 7. He is a mechanist warrior, enhanced with cybernetic implants for improved combat performance. His reaction time is 3 times faster than baseline for his species, and his strength has been increased by a factor of 5. Maya walked into the sparring circle, still thinking about plasma conduit maintenance. Does he need fixing? Those servo sounds suggest his joint actuators need lubrication. Unit 7's red eyes focused on her. "I require no maintenance, human. I require only victory." The match began without ceremony. Unit 7 moved faster than anything Maya had seen at the academy so far. His metal-enhanced fists cut through the air with mechanical precision, following attack patterns programmed into his combat systems. Maya stepped sideways to avoid the first punch, her mind automatically calculating the trajectory based on his shoulder position and foot placement. She had learned to read mechanical systems long before she learned to read people, and Unit 7 was more machine than person. The second punch came from an unexpected angle, but Maya had already seen the servo adjustment that preceded it. She ducked under the blow and continued reading the patterns in his movements. Every attack followed logical sequences based on efficiency algorithms. It was like watching a very advanced manufacturing robot. "Focus, Torres," Crone shouted from the sidelines. "Your opponent is not a maintenance problem." Maya blocked a kick that would have shattered concrete, her hand absorbing the impact without strain. "Actually, he kind of is. His left knee actuator is running hot, and his balance compensation is overcorrecting for a damaged gyroscope." Unit 7 paused for 0.3 seconds to process this information. In that pause, Maya saw something that made her actually pay attention for the first time since arriving at the academy. The mechanist warrior was not just enhanced with machinery, he was trapped by it. The cybernetic implants had replaced so much of his original body that his movements were constrained by programming rather than choice. He fought not because he wanted to, but because his combat systems demanded it. For the first time in 3 weeks, Maya stopped thinking about maintenance, schedules, and focused completely on what stood in front of her. Unit 7 resumed his attack pattern, but now Maya moved differently. Instead of simply avoiding his strikes, she began to understand them. Each punch and kick followed from the previous one in sequences designed for maximum efficiency. But efficiency in combat was different from efficiency in repair work. Maya had spent years learning to fix systems by understanding how they were supposed to work and identifying where they had gone wrong. Unit 7 was a system that had gone wrong in a fundamental way. The machinery that enhanced his body had begun to control it. She caught his next punch in her palm and held it steady. Unit 7's servos whined as they tried to complete the programmed movement, but Maya's grip was immovable. "Your combat routines are stuck in a feedback loop," she said quietly. "The targeting system is prioritizing speed over accuracy because the damage sensors are not reporting correctly." Unit 7's red eyes flickered. "Impossible. My systems are functioning at optimal parameters." Maya twisted her wrist slightly, and something in Unit 7's arm clicked back into proper alignment. The whining sound from his servos dropped to a normal hum. "Your damage sensors have been reporting false positives for months. The combat system compensated by increasing aggression protocols, which created more stress on your mechanical components, which triggered more false damage reports." She released his fist and stepped back. Unit 7 stared at his arm, flexing mechanical fingers that moved more smoothly than they had in over a year. "How did you know?" he asked. "Same way I know when any machine is not working right. You listen to the sounds it makes and feel how it moves. Your body is part machine now, but machines are supposed to serve you, not control you." The training hall had gone completely silent. Every being present watched as Maya reached out and made a small adjustment to Unit 7's shoulder joint. Another click, and his entire posture changed as his balance systems recalibrated. "Better?" Maya asked. Unit 7 moved his arm in a slow circle, testing the range of motion. "Yes, much better. I had not realized how much pain I was experiencing until it stopped." Dr. Lin was frantically taking notes on her tablet. "Maya, how did you diagnose a cybernetic malfunction just by watching him fight?" Maya shrugged. "Broken. Things make specific sounds and move in specific ways. It does not matter if it is a plasma conduit or a person with mechanical parts. The principles are the same." Crone walked into the sparring circle, his yellow eyes studying Maya with new intensity. "You ended the match without violence. You identified a problem your opponent did not know he had and solved it in minutes." "I guess so. Is that bad?" "No, Torres. That is extraordinary." Dr. Lin approached the group, her tablet displaying streams of data. "Maya, I need to ask you some questions about your background. The personnel files show you grew up on a mining colony called Haven Point. What can you tell me about that place?" Maya's expression darkened slightly. "Not much. Everyone there died when I was 16. Equipment failure in the main life support system. I was off station doing repairs when it happened." "What kind of mining operation was it?" "I do not know. My parents never talked about the work. They just said it was important and dangerous." Maya looked uncomfortable with the questions. "Why does it matter?" Dr. Lin exchanged glances with Director Neth, who had appeared at the edge of the sparring circle. "Maya, I have been researching Haven Point. It was not a mining colony." "What do you mean?" "It was a military research facility. Specifically, it was studying human adaptation to extreme environments. The goal was to determine how human physiology might evolve under conditions of high stress and limited resources." Maya stared at her. "That is impossible. I would have known if..." The research was classified. Even the families living there did not know the true purpose of the facility. What they knew was that Haven Point was a place where humans could thrive in conditions that would kill most other species. The pieces began falling into place in Maya's mind, like components of a machine she was learning to understand. The narrow spaces she had grown up navigating, the constant equipment failures that required quick thinking and quicker reflexes, the way her parents and their neighbors all moved with an efficiency that she had thought was normal. The enhanced reflexes, the spatial awareness, the ability to diagnose complex problems instantly. Dr. Lin continued, "These are not random talents, Maya. They are adaptations that developed over generations of humans living in an environment that demanded perfection." Maya felt something heavy settle in her chest. "So I am what? Some kind of experiment? You are what your species becomes when it is challenged to be better than it thought possible," Director Neth said gently. "The question now is what you choose to do with those capabilities." Maya looked around the training hall at beings from a dozen different species, all of whom had spent years learning to fight. Then she looked at Unit 7, who was still testing his newly repaired arm movements. "I want to keep fixing things," she said finally. "But maybe some of the things that need fixing are more complicated than I thought." The announcement echoed through every corridor of the Academy, broadcast on frequencies that reached across 3 star systems. The Crimson Trials would begin in 7 days. Maya had hoped she could avoid participating, but Director Neth made it clear that refusal was not an option. She stood in the equipment bay holding a practice sword that felt completely wrong in her hands. The weapon was balanced for someone who thought fighting was about aggression and force. Maya preferred tools that solved problems through precision and understanding. "Stop thinking of it as a weapon," Drillmaster Crone advised from across the training room. "Think of it as another kind of tool." Maya swung the sword experimentally. The blade moved through the air with mechanical efficiency, but there was no purpose to the motion. Tools are supposed to fix things. This just breaks them, perhaps. But sometimes breaking one thing prevents the breaking of many others. Around them, other academy students prepared for the trials with the intensity of beings who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Rex, a young saurid warrior with green scales and too much pride, practiced complex attack sequences against training drones. Finn, the eager human cadet who had appointed himself as Maya's unofficial student, worked through basic defensive forms with the determination of someone trying to prove himself. The trials themselves were not just about individual combat. Teams of 4 would face challenges that tested leadership, tactical thinking, and the ability to work together under pressure. Maya found herself assigned to a team that included Rex, Finn, and a quiet being called Ash, whose species she could not identify. "This is perfect," Rex announced on the first day of team training. "I will lead, Finn will provide support, Ash will handle reconnaissance, and Torres can fix anything that breaks." Maya was examining a malfunctioning training drone while Rex spoke. The machine kept firing at random intervals instead of following its targeting protocols. She found the problem quickly: a loose connection in the behavior matrix that made the drone treat everything as either a threat or an ally with no middle ground. "Actually," Maya said, not looking up from her work, "I think we need to understand what the trials are really testing before we decide who does what." Rex's scales darkened slightly, which Maya had learned was a sign of irritation. The trials test combat effectiveness. That is what they have always tested. Maya finished repairing the drone and watched it resume normal operation. If they only wanted to test fighting, they would just have individual matches. The team format means they want something else. Dr. Lin appeared at the edge of the training area, her tablet as always in hand. "Maya is correct. The Crimson Trials were designed to identify beings capable of solving complex problems under extreme stress. Combat skill is only one component." She activated a holographic display that showed the trial arena. It was enormous, with multiple levels and environmental hazards that could be activated by the trial masters. Teams face 3 challenges over 2 days. Pure combat is only the final test. Before that, they must navigate a maze that changes while they are inside it, and solve a tactical puzzle that has no predetermined solution. Maya studied the hologram with the same attention she gave to equipment schematics. The arena was essentially a giant machine with moving parts, environmental controls, and systems that could be manipulated if you understood how they worked. "Has anyone ever won by avoiding combat entirely?" she asked. Dr. Lin smiled. "Not yet. But the rules do not require violence to succeed, only success itself." Training continued for the next week, but Maya approached it differently than her teammates. While Rex practiced sword techniques and Finn worked on his shield formations, Maya explored the Academy's archives, learning everything she could about previous trials. The pattern became clear after reviewing decades of recorded matches. Teams that succeeded did so not because they were the strongest fighters, but because they adapted to unexpected situations faster than their opponents. The trials rewarded creative thinking over conventional tactics. On the morning of the first trial, Maya's team stood with 15 others at the entrance to the maze. Each team wore different colored uniforms. Maya's team was assigned blue. The maze itself looked like a mechanical puzzle made of walls that could rise and fall, floors that could tilt and rotate, and passages that appeared and disappeared based on triggers hidden throughout the structure. Teams have 2 hours to reach the center of the maze and retrieve their objective, the trial master announced. The maze will reconfigure every 15 minutes. Use of weapons is permitted but not required. As soon as the starting signal sounded, most teams charged forward into the maze, their members spreading out to cover more ground. Rex wanted to follow the same strategy, but Maya held up her hand. "Wait. Look at how the walls move." She knelt on the ground and placed her palm against the floor. Through the metal, she could feel vibrations that followed specific patterns. The maze was not random, it was a machine with predictable cycles. "The reconfigurations follow a sequence," Maya explained quickly. "If we time our movement correctly, we can use the changes to reach the center faster instead of fighting against them." Rex looked skeptical, but Finn was already nodding, like surfing gravity waves during orbital maneuvers. Exactly. Ash, can. You climb to a higher position and watch for the pattern signals. Ash, who had remained silent during most of their training, spoke for the first time. I can see electromagnetic fields. The control signals are visible to me. Maya grinned. Perfect. Rex, we will need your strength, but not for fighting. Some of the mechanisms will require manual operation. Their team moved through the maze with methodical precision. Instead of fighting the changing walls, they worked with them. When passages closed, Maya had already identified alternate routes. When floors tilted, they rode the motion instead of resisting it. Rex discovered that his strength could manually trigger certain wall movements, giving them control over sections of the maze that other teams could only react to. They reached the center objective in 47 minutes faster than any team in the trial's history. Maya picked up their target, a simple metal cube, and looked around at the mechanical systems that controlled the entire maze. You know, she said thoughtfully, I bet I could reprogram this whole thing to make it more efficient. Rex stared at her. You want to fix the trial maze? It has some design flaws. The power consumption is way higher than it needs to be, and the reconfiguration sequence puts unnecessary stress on the actuator systems. Finn laughed. Maybe save that for after we win? The second trial was the tactical puzzle Dr. Lin had mentioned. Teams were presented with a scenario where they had to coordinate the evacuation of a space station while hostile forces approached. They had access to limited resources and incomplete information, and their solutions would be judged on both effectiveness and creativity. Most teams approached the problem like a military exercise, focusing on defensive positions and combat readiness. Maya's team took a different approach entirely. What if we do not fight them at all? Maya suggested during their planning phase. Rex looked at her like she had suggested abandoning gravity. It is a combat scenario. Fighting is the point. The point is successful evacuation. Fighting is just one way to achieve that. Maya studied the scenario parameters on their assigned tablet. Look at the resource list. We have industrial fabrication, equipment, a full machine shop, and enough raw materials to build almost anything. What are you thinking? Ash asked. Maya smiled. I am thinking we solve this like an engineering problem instead of a military one. Their solution involved no combat at all. Instead, they used the fabrication equipment to build automated decoy stations that would draw the hostile forces away from the real evacuation routes. Meanwhile, they modified the station's defensive systems to create the appearance of a much larger military presence than actually existed. The hostile forces, faced with what appeared to be a heavily defended target and multiple high-value alternative objectives, chose to attack the decoys instead of the evacuation ships. Every civilian escaped safely while the defenders never fired a single shot. The trial judges were silent for a long time after Maya's team presented their solution. Finally, one of them spoke. In 300 years of trials, no team has achieved complete success without casualties. How did you know this approach would work? Maya shrugged. Hostile forces are just another kind of system. They have objectives, limitations, and predictable responses to stimuli. If you understand the system, you can influence its behavior without destroying it. The final trial would be individual combat, but Maya had already begun to see that the real test was not about fighting at all. It was about demonstrating that there were always alternatives to violence for those creative enough to find them. The final arena held 20,000 spectators from across the galaxy. Maya had never seen so many different species in one place, and the noise they made reminded her of machinery running at different frequencies. She sat in the competitors' area, reading a technical manual about waste recycling systems while beings around her prepared for what many considered the most important combat trial in the known universe. Her opponent in the final match was Warmaster, Dex of the Hegemony, a species that had built their entire civilization around the concept of honorable combat. Dex stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that looked like living metal. He had won the Crimson Trials 3 times before, and had never lost a single match in 15 years of competition. Nervous? Finn asked, taking a seat beside her. Maya looked up from her reading. Should I be? It is just another problem to solve. Rex approached from the other direction, his green scales bright with excitement. His attitude toward Maya had changed completely during their team trials. Torres, I wanted to apologize for doubting your methods. What you did with the evacuation scenario was brilliant. It was just engineering. You identify the system requirements, understand the constraints, and design a solution that meets the objectives with minimum resource expenditure. Dr. Lin hurried over with her tablet displaying streams of data. Maya, I have been analyzing Dex's combat patterns. He relies on overwhelming force and superior reach. His four-arm configuration allows for attack combinations that are mathematically impossible to block using conventional defensive techniques. Maya nodded absently. What about his mechanical limitations? Joint angles, balance points, energy expenditure rates? I do not understand. He is still a physical system, right? Mass, leverage, momentum, reaction time. Every system has optimal operating parameters and failure points. Before Dr. Lin could respond, the arena announcers called for the final match. Maya tucked her manual away and walked toward the center of the combat area. The crowd noise faded to a low hum as 20,000 beings focused their attention on the small human, facing the legendary Warmaster. Dex stood in the traditional hegemony combat pose, all four arms positioned for maximum striking potential. His metallic skin reflected the arena lights, and when he spoke, his voice carried clearly across the vast space. Human, I have studied your previous matches. Your techniques are unconventional, but you face a true warrior now. I will show you the difference between cleverness and strength. Maya looked up at him with genuine curiosity. How much do you weigh? Dex paused, clearly not expecting that question. What? Your body mass. I am trying to calculate your power to weight, ratio, and optimal movement efficiency. It affects how I should approach this. The Warmaster's four eyes narrowed. I do not discuss tactical information with opponents. It is not really tactical. It is just physics. Maya walked in a slow circle around Dex, observing his stance and movement patterns like she was examining a piece of equipment. Forearms provide multiple attack vectors, but they also require more energy to coordinate. Your nervous system has to process significantly more sensory input than a two-armed being. Dex launched his first attack without warning, all four arms moving in a coordinated pattern that had devastated opponents for over a decade. Maya stepped sideways and backward, letting the strikes pass through empty air while she continued her analysis. Interesting. Your attack sequences are optimized for opponents who fight from a fixed position. But what happens if your target keeps moving in 3 dimensions? Maya did not fight back. Instead, she moved around Dex like she was navigating through a complex piece of machinery, staying just outside his reach while studying the patterns of his attacks. The crowd grew restless as minutes passed without the spectacular combat they had expected. Stand and fight. Dex roared, frustration creeping into his voice. Why, you are already fighting yourself. Maya was right. Dex's four-armed coordination required precise timing and positioning. When his opponent refused to engage at his preferred distance, his attack patterns began to interfere with each other. His upper arms started colliding with his lower arms as he tried to adjust to Maya's movement. Your coordination system is designed for maximum efficiency against static targets, Maya called out as she continued circling. But efficiency decreases exponentially when you have to constantly recalculate targeting solutions. Dex tried to compensate by increasing his attack speed, but this only made the coordination problems worse. His breathing became labored as his body systems worked harder to process the increased sensory load. Maya saw the moment when exhaustion began to affect his motor control. His left lower arm dropped slightly, creating an opening in his defensive coverage. Instead of attacking through the gap, Maya stopped moving entirely. You are tired, she said simply. Dex stopped attacking, all four arms trembling slightly from the sustained effort. What kind of warrior are you? I am not a warrior at all. I am someone who fixes problems. Maya walked closer to him, moving slowly so he would not interpret it as an attack. Your problem is not that you need to defeat me. Your problem is that you think defeating me is the only way to succeed. The trial requires victory in combat. Maya looked around the arena at the thousands of spectators, then up at the observation box where Director Neth and the other trial judges watched. Does it? What exactly are the victory conditions? Dex followed her gaze to the judges. Defeat of the opponent through superior combat skill. But what does defeat actually mean? Does it require unconsciousness, surrender, inability to continue fighting? The arena had gone completely silent. Even the judges leaned forward to hear what Maya was saying. I have an idea, Maya continued. What if we both win? That is impossible. Combat has winners and losers. Combat does. But problem-solving does not always work that way. Maya stepped back and raised her hands in the universal gesture of peace. War Master Dex, I formally acknowledge your superior combat skills, your years of training, and your rightful place as champion of the hegemony. I cannot defeat you through strength or traditional fighting techniques. Dex lowered his forearms, confusion replacing anger on his metallic features. Then you surrender? No, I offer you a different kind of victory. Maya turned to address the judges directly. The purpose of the Crimson Trials is to identify beings capable of solving complex problems under extreme pressure. I propose that finding a solution that allows both opponents to succeed demonstrates greater problem-solving ability than simply defeating one through violence. Director Neth's crystalline form shifted through several colors as she considered this. What solution do you propose? Maya looked back at Dex. The hegemony values honor above victory. War Master Dex, if I can demonstrate a technique that improves your combat effectiveness, would that not be a greater honor than simply being declared winner of a match? Dex was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. What technique? Maya walked over to him and gestured to his forearms. Your coordination problems are not due to physical limitations. They are caused by inefficient neural processing pathways. Your brain is trying to control forearms like they are two separate two-armed systems instead of treating them as one integrated four-armed system. She guided him through a series of simple movements, showing him how to sequence his attacks so that each arm's motion flowed naturally into the next. Instead of four independent weapons, his arms became parts of a single, much more effective combat system. Try your standard attack pattern now, Maya suggested. Dex moved through his familiar sequences, but now they flowed like water instead of fighting against each other. His speed increased, his energy expenditure decreased, and his coordination improved dramatically. The crowd erupted in amazement. War Master Dex, the greatest fighter in hegemony history, had just become visibly more deadly through a simple adjustment suggested by someone who claimed not to be a warrior at all. Dex stared at his forearms in wonder. How did you know this would work? Same way I know how to fix any system that is not operating at peak efficiency. You observe, you understand, you adjust. Maya smiled. The real question is, what do we do now? Director Neth stood in the observation box, her crystalline form cycling through colors rapidly. In 400 years of Crimson Trials, we have never encountered a situation where both participants actively improved each other's capabilities. This requires consideration. The judges deliberated for nearly an hour while Maya and Dex waited in the arena. When they returned, Director Neath spoke to the crowd first. The Crimson Trials exist to identify beings capable of extraordinary achievement under pressure. Today we have witnessed something unprecedented. Rather than seeking to defeat her opponent, Maya Torres chose to enhance his capabilities. Rather than protecting his techniques from a rival, War Master Dex chose to learn and adapt. She turned to address Maya directly. Maya Torres, you have demonstrated that the highest form of problem-solving involves creating solutions where none were thought to exist. The Academy offers you a position as instructor of applied problem resolution. Maya blinked in surprise. Is that like being a teacher? It is being whatever kind of teacher you choose to become. Maya looked around the arena at the thousands of beings from dozens of species, all watching to see what she would say. She thought about maintenance shafts and broken recycling units and all the simple problems that had clear solutions. Then she thought about Unit 7 with his trapped consciousness, and Dex with his inefficient coordination, and all the complex problems that might not have solutions yet, but could have them if someone approached them the right way. Can I still fix regular equipment when things break? Director Neth's laughter sounded like crystal chimes in a gentle breeze. Maya Torres, I believe you will find that almost everything needs fixing in one way or another. Maya nodded slowly. Then yes, I accept. The crowd's response was unlike anything heard in the arena's history. It was not the roar of spectators celebrating violence, but something warmer and more complex. It was the sound of beings recognizing that they had witnessed the beginning of something new. 6 months later, Maya stood in her classroom watching students from 12 different species work through problems that had no predetermined solutions. Her teaching method was simple: identify what needs fixing, understand how the system works, and find the most efficient way to make it better. On her desk sat a collection of items that perfectly summarized her approach to education: a broken plasma coupling that students used to learn diagnostic techniques, a holographic puzzle that required cooperation between different species to solve, a maintenance manual bookmarked at the section on preventive care, and prominently displayed in the center, a simple sign that read, "The best way to win a fight is to fix whatever made the fight necessary in the first place." Maya Torres had found her place in the galaxy, and the galaxy was beginning to understand that sometimes the most important discoveries came from asking completely different questions.